Hi everyone, welcome back to RTS and welcome back to another start to finish layout. Yes, we are going to be working on a layout today that is going to be in conjunction with what we did yesterday in our go-to design series. And so what would that be? The grid. Yes, that's the layout design we're going to work on, and it's absolutely a fun go-to design. Now with my start to finish layout, of course you see I have some photos. I have some vintage photos, yes, in the original black and white, and I have some papers picked because I'm going to be working from a load prompt that happened in October. And if you want more information about the load event, it is listed below, and there's also a new load blog, so I will have the link below, so go check that out. Alice is just cracking up she's just cracking it up over there at the ScrapHappy membership, so look below, there's a discount. And then so for day 7 of the load event, the musical that was talked about was the Darn Yankees. Now, of course, it's called something else than Darn, but you know, that's what I'm going to say. The Darn Yankees from 1955. And so, of course, this has to do with baseball and sports. So the prompt was to scrapbook yourself or someone else that you would like to concerning sports or baseball. And so I definitely have some photos of my hubby in the 70s when he was a pitcher for a baseball team. So that is absolutely what I'm going to do. So excited, and I know he's going to be over the moon to see this page. So that is the motivation to get it done. So thank you, Sue, for a wonderful prompt. And then also to the technique that she gave us was a color challenge of using red, white, and blue. So I took Sue's advice and I'm doing both. So absolutely. And that's why I like the load event, because it gives me a direction. Now, I just got a question today, and it was from Maxine, and she said, how do you know what to scrap and when to scrap, and basically, what are you in the mood to scrap? And for me, when I'm working on load events, those prompts prompt me as to what I'm going to work on. I just let those prompts stew for a little bit, and then I figure out what I want to do. But when I'm not working with load prompts, I usually work on this album for a little bit, I work on that album for a little bit, I work on some story ideas for a little bit, and then I just go with that. So I just do a little bit of everything all the time. Okay, and we'll talk more about that when we talk about our video about the guilt in scrapbooking. Okay, so this is what I have picked out for my papers. They are from the Pebbles line. Actually, they're all Pebbles paper. Yes, they are, because when I go to red, white, and blue, I go to my patriotic paper categories, and I will have a video listed below that you can see more about paper categories and how I have mine listed. And so, of course, this was in the patriotic, and this is from the line Let Freedom Ring. And I have no idea why these papers jumped out at me. I think it's because they feel vintage and they feel Americana, and of course baseball. And so, you know, these are from the 70s and they're from my hubby. And so I think he would enjoy seeing that type of mood and feel on this page, and that's just how I'm feeling, okay? And then, of course, I have some white wash wood grain because I think that went. Now, you'll notice that this is like a darker craft, and I'm going to marry that with white. I don't worry about that anymore. When it comes to scrapbooking, I mix it all. Okay, and so since I pulled these papers, and I've said this in several videos, that my pattern paper is my main embellishment and it is my mood and feel. So everything that I selected from this was the Americana baseball, vintage baseball. That's the mood and feel. And so what did I do? Well, first of all, I only have a couple, just 2 or 3 themed embellishments when it came to baseball, and I actually had bought them last year or the year before, something like that, only because we had went to a baseball game and I knew I would need something, and also too I knew I had this coming up somewhere in my future. So I do have some puffy stickers that are the vintage type baseball, and then I have a couple of these elements that I'm sure I can pull in. So I'm happy with those 2 choices. And so I like that you can get different collections. This is Pebbles. This is Recollections, which I don't even know who owns that. And Paper House. So 3 different companies, all works well. And then keeping with that Americana vintage baseball feel, I pulled some washi that made me feel that way. And also too, some of these stars. These stars here specifically reminded me of that vintage Americana. Okay. And so that is my mood and feel. Of course, I also pulled some twine because, you know, we're talking about baseball. There's always stitching on the baseballs. And then, of course, my photo corners. That is a staple. And I just pulled all of those colors. I don't know what I'll play with. Okay. And then what I did also, too, for my mood and feel is that I had the notion to pull some corrugated in this navy. And so when I say mood and feel, it's not just paper, it's also embellishments, okay? And then also, too, I saw this die cut, and of course, it reminded me of baseballs. So these two items here are in my section in my room that is for specialty papers, and I'll have a video coming up shortly, and I will show you how I have that divided as far as my specialty papers, and we'll talk more about that. So absolutely tickled how that went. Now, let's talk about mood and feel for just one more minute. And then I'll come back with the finished page because it's going to be a grid layout. It will not take me long. I wanted to talk about, again, more mood and feel because I get a lot of questions about that. So when I decided to pull some alphas, you know, and of course I got this vintage Americana baseball mood and feel going on, I decided to make sure when I picked out an alpha, which I'm going thickers this time, is that I kept that in mind. And so I have this thicker here that absolutely goes with this. And it reminds you of high school and college, and it's got that school feel. Okay, so that would go with my pictures. And then, of course, I have these alphas that absolutely look high school, collegiate, that type of thing. So absolutely, I didn't know what color to pull, so guess what? I pulled all three because I didn't know. I knew I had these, and I have not used a single one in any of these packs. So absolutely like that. So that is 3 more options, okay, to go with this mood and feel. And then, of course, since we're dealing with sports, you can pull out anything that's in a banner or a pennant. Of course, if you're talking vintage sports, because you saw that a lot, okay? Now, honestly, this took just a couple minutes, and look how many options I have. And then I spied this one. And I have no idea, probably because I have this houndstooth pattern in my washi. It made me, this popped out at me. Of course, it's black. To me, it feels vintage Americana, and I may use it for the year. I may. I don't know. I like that, okay? So those are my choices. Honestly, it took less than 5 minutes to pull all of this because when you have your supplies organized in the manner in which you scrap, bing, bang, boom. Now, there was one other thing I added to this, and what would that be? Okay, so I decided that this paper right here was my mood and feel, and I feel like I might want some banners in this striped paper here. So I thought, you know what I do? I'm going to get out a punch. So what I do, pull out my catalog inventory binder. I knew to go to punch bag 9, which I'll have that video listed below, and I have 3 options here. Look at this. I have this a scallop, a bigger scallop, and then I saw this slide. And I thought, oh, I might get that slide frame in too, instead of doing a banner. But I don't know. You know, when I think of vintage baseball, not that my hubby is old, but yeah, let's just tell it like it is, folks. It's been a long time since we graduated. So, and you know what I'm talking about, okay? When you get, you know, reunion invitations and it's, you know, it's 30 and 40 and yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so I thought I would go ahead and incorporate those 3 punches. Not that I'll use all 3, but the options are here. So with that, and all these choices here, and then I have these 3 edge punches here. I honestly have everything I need to create this layout. I don't have to get off my seat to do anything, and you know how I like that. So, okay, I will stop chatting there, and I will come back with a finished go-to design, start to finish, grid style. Yes, using a load prompt. How's that? Okay, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back with my finished page, and it went very, very quickly because, again, I went to a go-to design, and what is that? The grid. So if you take away my photos and my few little embellishments here, what do I have in the background? I have 6 blocks that make up my grid, and then, of course, I took my photos and my mat, and I overlapped that grid. And I wanted to show something with my paper because I ended up just using these 3 papers that I had pulled, and they had fun names. One said James Madison, one said Charles Thompson from the Pebbles line, Let Freedom Ring. I always like when companies do fun names for their papers because I do. I look at that and I read that. That's fun. Okay, and so even though this paper here was my inspiration, my complete mood and feel, I didn't put a lot on there, but I certainly did it in what I wanted, which was a banner. And then I did a little strip down here with a branding strip. And so again, the background was very, very simple. And of course, as I said in the go-to design video for the grid, one of the best ways to get these grids lined up, because you can't see that other than here, is that I use my T-square ruler, and underneath my photos, that's how I line those grids up in the back. Very, very simple to do, and it goes very, very quickly. That's why we love the grid go-to design. So then, of course, with my photos on top of this corrugated paper, again with the mood and feel, I also use this die cut paper from Jelly Bean Soup, and then I used my paper tearing ruler, and I did that to give my edges here some paper tearing on all 6 of these blocks that form my grid. And I also completed that with my corrugated paper. Very, very fun. A simple and a quick way to add some texture to a page. So then, of course, all I did was I took some washi tape, and I put it over this branding strip paper, and I used this blue triangle because it reminded me of baseball, you know, triangles, things like that. And the navy wasn't as dark, so what I did was I just used 2 strips of that, and the same with my black up here, which this reminded me of baseballs. And also, too, to tie in with the black that I used for some of my embellishing, I did 2 strips of that over top of each other. It just gave more of an impact. And then, of course, with my stars, and I had a little mishap when I was doing this page, my stars tilted over, and all these landed on my desk, and I had to pick them up. But they were fun to play with because I used these stars to do in my clusters here and here, and one little one here, so that, again, made my visual triangle. And they just reminded me, reminded me of Americana. Baseball, vintage baseball. And then also, too, in my embellishments that were pre-made from Paper House, they had stars right in along with that. So that just tied in. And again, there's my 2 vintage baseballs. And then, of course, I put some varsity letters right there. And then that is basically how quick it went. My journaling is going to go down here. I only have about 3 lines of journaling because, you know, as years go by, you don't remember as much. But we have a little bit of say here. And then, of course, I added some more texture in. I added some of this twine in. And that's basically what, embroidery floss, something like that. Embroidery thread. And so to make these little bundles, which Nicole Jones is the one who got me hooked on that many years ago. And so I just take 1 or 2 fingers, and that's how I make these bundles. I just wrap them around, and that's a big bundle. And then I just tuck them under things. And then to secure these twine or floss bundles, I use this Tombow Mono Liquid Glue Aqua. And that way it you can see where you're putting it, and then it dries clear. I really use this because then I can move my little bundles wherever I want. Okay? And then sometimes when I do a little bundle, as I'll just take 1 finger and I wrap it around, and that'll create a little bundle. Okay? See the little bundle? And then you can take your little loops in through that hole, and then you can tie that in if you want. You know, tie it together if you want to make a little knot for that bundle. You can absolutely do that and cut them, and you can just keep doing as many things as you want with those tails. A lot of different options, okay? And those little bundles. Love doing that. So, again, Nicole Jones got me hooked on that several years ago, okay? And I just tucked a couple in there because to go with the stitching in the baseball and the stitching that's in gloves and things like that, because this is about my hubby being a pitcher. So I love the load prompt for that. And of course, I got 2 of my photo corners in. Now I will say, when you are adhering photos to corrugated paper, which I used my quick dry tacky, you definitely want to be generous with the glue, because for corrugated paper, sometimes it doesn't always stick as well. And that is how simple. And then, yes, guess what? I did use 2 of my punches. I used my big scallop up here. And then I also broke out my negative slide frame, and I just added a piece here just to tie in a little bit, you know, from days gone by. Absolutely. Okay, so that is how quick this grid go-to design went. And all I had was paper and 2 little embellishments, and pulled out some washi, and got some texture in with corrugated paper and that floss, twine, thread, whatever you want to call that. I need to figure out what is the exact name for this. Is it embroidery floss, embroidery thread, or what is it? Or is it crochet thread? I'm not really sure. My sister uses this, and she makes doilies. I mean, beautiful. Well, she can do anything. But anyways, what is that called? I have to ask. I don't know. Okay, so that's all I have for this go-to design as far as the grid. And so come back in 2 or 3 days, and we're going to talk about the next go-to design, which will be the band. That's what we're going to tackle next. So come back to RTS, because You never know what we're going to learn. Bye.